This is Zestology. It's the podcast all about energy, vitality, and motivation. And this is a bit of an experiment. It's a kind of extra podcast. And that is because it is the reworking of an Instagram live that I did with Zestology, friend of the show, and Chinese Medicine Doctor Katie Brindle. You've probably listened to her podcast before. She's absolutely brilliant. And last week we recorded an Instagram live and I've repurposed it for the podcast. It might or might not work. If you're somebody who is a bit of a purist when it comes to podcasts and crystal clear audio, you might not like this. And you might want to go back to some of the interviews that I've already done with Katie Brindle. In fact, this isn't me interviewing Katie Brindle, it's her interviewing me on her Instagram live, but it's basically just a chat. And on this podcast, we talk Qigong, histamine, meditation, tapping, intermittent fasting, and loads more as well, including men's health. But as I say, the sound quality isn't perfect. So cut me some slack on that. Actually, it's an experiment. I'm quite keen on kind of killing two birds with one stone, doing a few Instagram lives, using the audio at the same time for a podcast. And the good thing about doing Instagram lives is that you can be a little bit more interactive with people. People can ask questions, for example, or make comments while you're talking. So it won't replace podcasts, but it could live alongside podcasts. Basically, what I'm saying is I'd love your feedback. If this is something, if the sound quality just isn't good enough for you as a podcast purist, then I'd love to know. And if you're not bothered and you've quite enjoyed this episode, then I'd also like to know. It is obviously a different format. So yeah, bring it out as an extra podcast and see what happens. So here is my chat with Katie Brindle, which is a Zestology extra after having gone on Instagram on the actual podcast, if that makes sense.
How are you?
I like being called the great Tony Wrighton. That's good.
The great, exactly. The great and the best. You are our token man. No, you're not at all. I
didn't hear that. I only wish I could have come up with better lockdown hair than this, but that's just the way it goes.
You look absolutely great. So I was really excited that you could do this evening because obviously it's Men's Health Week this week, and obviously you and I go way back. You are like our earliest adopter, literally, as a man.
That's so great, and you know that I've just like constantly like singing your praises, really excited by what you're doing. I keep saying to my other half, look what Katie's doing now. You know, I really love it all, and obviously the Qigong more recently has just been fantastic. I'm happy to talk about that if you want as well.
I'd love you to actually, because to be honest, the whole point of wanting to kind of bring you, because normally I'm on your platform, normally I'm on podcasting with you, and we have great chats. But this one's more about me saying to you, right, come on my platform, which is Instagram, and basically talking about men's health, which is obviously the big topic of this week. And you are a very good example of this because not only with your normal job and then what you do with this as well. And you've just completed the 12 Rivers with Aaron, haven't you?
Yes, I did that course kind of probably 3 weeks or so. And, you know, on the podcast that we've recorded, I said to you a few times, you know, I've done Qigong a few times and I love it. And I've always felt like it's so much more than the sum of its parts. The way that I feel afterwards is just so good.
Yeah.
And I love the course. You know, I mean, I've been doing it almost every day since.
Brilliant.
I think one of the reasons that it was interesting, because I think, you know, the course was completely sold out, completely full. So there was kind of 25 people in the screen. I think I was the only bloke, or maybe there was one other.
Yeah, that's Aaron.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny because obviously Aaron has a you know, is building a pretty dedicated female following. But actually, I think what he does is fairly masculine as well. Actually, and that's what I really loved it. You know, it's kind of, it felt to me like a kind of a very male practice. That, you know, it feels very warrior-like actually, without going too deeply into it. And actually, in that respect, I think it works much better for me than yoga.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is one of the reasons I really love working with Aaron, because he's a man's man at the end of the day. And yes, you know, we're in the space. I mean, at the end of the day, Aaron's picked up a lot of followers through me, and, you know, I am a middle-aged woman, and therefore, you know, I'm going to have a certain, you know, but I am, you know, I'm not kidding anyone. I've now been called Benjamina Button because with all this gua sha, I'm getting younger by the day. But nonetheless, I can't fault biology. I am nearly 50. But, you know, Aaron is a very compelling male to work with, I think, because, you know, he's a rugby player. He comes from a fitness background. You know, he has a girlfriend. You know, he's the kind of guy that you'd want to hang out with. And I think he makes Qigong really accessible. And I do really, I mean, like, you know, come on, you are like sports guru, but, you know, taking on board these kind of Eastern practices for health from a male perspective, I think is a really important thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, you know, I work at Sky. That's my day job, and I talk about sport for a living. A very kind of male job, and I think I've always been that kind of self-helpy one. But I'm always trying to kind of, you know, subtly push some of this stuff on them. And it occurred to me that my mates, for example, were really like doing that course and get a lot out of it, in a way that they wouldn't with, you know, some of the other things that I might feature on Zestology. We've sorted out an interview with Aaron as well for Zestology, so I'm doing that in the next couple of weeks.
I'm really pleased because I thought you two would connect really well because you're obviously on the same page.
Yeah. No, and it's just great. I'm enjoying it so much. I've been out in the garden at 7 o'clock in the morning doing it in the sunshine. It's just like, what a way to start the day, you know.
Yeah, and what have you noticed now you've been doing it for a few weeks? Because obviously I bang on, I mean, I do my Qigong class every day and I go on and on and I can really go on, but I really do, because I'm absolutely convinced that Qigong is what everybody should be doing. So now that you've been doing it for, say, 3 weeks, what kind of difference have you noticed?
I mean, on a kind of practice level, I've noticed that it's quite hard to, I'm still doing it following Aaron's videos. Getting better. I don't really need to watch it that much during it, except that I couldn't remember the order of everything in the right order without still following the video. So that's good. And then, I mean, I wouldn't say that kind of, I felt dreadful before and it's completely turned my life around. But I would say on a physical level, it's a little bit more gentle than I've been doing more exercise in lockdown than I've ever done before. I'm working out every day now without fail. That's just become a routine, a habit. I've been reading James Clear's book called Atomic Habits, which I don't know if you've read it, mate. It's just brilliant.
Right.
Yeah, it's very good. And so I've been incorporating this into my kind of daily workouts. And I think it's a little bit less energetic than some of my workouts. And funnily enough, I think that's what I actually need.
Yeah.
To slow down, and even during lockdown, to slow down and do less, and to be very mindful, and the breath. You know, the moment your mind, and you will know this, the moment your mind drifts off and you start thinking about something else, you've lost the breath, haven't you? It's completely gone.
And you've got to hook it back down. And I think certainly from sort of a lot of the male patients that I've seen, or listening to the female patients talk about the loved ones in their life, there's a lot of pressure on men to be sort of like, to do the kind of the very, what I'd say, the yang, kind of like the fitness stuff, you know, the sort of the pump it and the driving and the come on. And actually to have permission to just slow it down, but nonetheless in a very kind of controlled masculine way, I think is probably quite appealing once you get your head around it.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. No, it is. It is very mindful. It's very male. It's very warm.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that you and I have, we have loads in common, but like one of the things that we love talking about is histamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just realised I think I joined this chat through my niche kind of second account, the Histamine Intolerance site account, rather than my main account. Have I done that? And do you want me
to... you have. That's why I was a bit, at the beginning, I was like, oh my God, hang on a minute. Do you want to re-come in?
Dial in again through the other one. I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. If you switch yourself off, I'll hold the fort.
Hold the fort. I know you, Katie, well enough that you are pretty good at holding the fort. So.
It's all QVC training. I could just keep going.
All right, one sec.
Okay.
Just interrupting this podcast for one moment to tell you that it is brought to you by my podcast partners for June, Magnesium Breakthrough. If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it is magnesium. It is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detox, very important, on topic for Zestology, fat metabolism, also on topic for Zestology, and energy, definitely on topic for Zestology. Problem with magnesium is it's largely missing from soil in the US, in the UK, pretty much around the world, and estimates are that up to 80% of people might be deficient in magnesium, and most supplements only have 1 or 2 forms of it, but not Magnesium Breakthrough. And that's why I'm doing Magnesium June, taking magnesium every day during June, and taking my partner Magnesium Breakthrough every day during June, in Magnesium June. Snappy title. Hope you're enjoying it, and I'd love to hear from you if you're doing it as well. Mag Breakthrough is where you can find the supplement, magbreakthrough.com/Zestology. You'll save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough, and that deal is only available on that website. It's not available on Amazon. It's not available on the company's own website. It's magbreakthrough.com/Zestology. Get involved in Magnesium June, like I am. Use the code Zestology10. And I'd love to hear from you if you're enjoying the magnesium. And you may well find that 7 different forms of magnesium is better absorbed than 1 or 2. It's magbreakthrough.com/Zestology. Now, back to the show.
So Tony basically is a Sky Sports presenter. I'll hold the fort, you know me. There we go. Right, he's back.
I've noticed there's more people watching while you've been holding the fort, so I'm not happy about that at all.
I'm doing a bit of a nightmare here because I've got everything, because I've got this one light and I've been using it the whole of lockdown, and it's literally on its last legs. It's been on its last legs for about the last 6 weeks, and it's now everything's going like this. It's all going to collapse in a minute.
I'm the one who works in, I know both work in telly, but your background is a lot more visually compelling, and your lighting than mine. I really need to sort this out.
You see, there's a world of pain behind me, though, trust me. Like, that's the bit that I block out by just standing here like this. It's just like every now and then. We were going to talk about histamine, which is one of our favourite topics.
Yes.
And actually, when I'm on the live feeds, and people are often talking about diets, I'm constantly recommending a low histamine diet for everyone. So, and you are like histamine guru, and this was something that we didn't even know we didn't know we both knew about until we'd finished the podcast. Then we went off into this complete tangent. So, tell me, like, how's histamine helping you, and why have you got so into it?
Yeah, I've just got really into it because I suppose kind of my route into much of this kind of wellness world was that I always felt dreadful and I never quite knew why. And I had kind of unexplained stomach issues, digestive issues, skin issues, and I could just not work it out. But lots of doctors, neurologists, everything, and I never came up with any answers until I heard of this weird and wonderful concept called histamine intolerance. And it seemed to me to be so complicated that I completely ignored it for about 6 months until I found somebody who said, look, there's quite an easy way to test if you've got histamine intolerance, and that is simply to follow a low histamine diet for a few days, eat low histamine foods and see if you felt better. And I did. I felt so much better, like straight away. It was mad how much better I felt. And I've never felt as bad as I felt before since. So since then I thought, well, you know, as a kind of niche little project, I'll start the histamine intolerance site and a separate Instagram, which I just dialed in by mistake on. And that's where I've been going with it. And I kind of love cooking low histamine food, really miss the red wine, but you can't have everything.
Yes, that's the problem, because we were doing, I mean, I don't like the term weight loss. I find it very negative, but what we're talking about is best self. And what I get in clinic, especially with women, is people with sort of stubborn body types that just will seem to sort of resist no matter what they do, how hard they try. And I talk about low histamine to these people because I stumbled across it too, because I had that body type. And then I find that, and I still don't absolutely completely understand this, obviously, because I'm Chinese medicine. When it comes to Western science, I get a bit hazy. But you really kind of understood it, because it's very much connected to the stress response, isn't it? That high stress creates high inflammation, creates high histamine.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. I mean, you know, histamine is a chemical that is kind of helps the body to run properly. But unfortunately, some of us make too much of it. And a lot of us are making too much of it at the moment because this is like slap bang in the middle of hay fever season. And a lot of people, including Piers Morgan, have said they've had the worst hay fever they've ever had. And Piers Morgan actually mistook it for coronavirus symptoms. He had
my God.
I mean, you know, thankfully it wasn't coronavirus and it was hay fever. But this does affect people badly.
Yeah.
There's lots of different ways that things that might be going on. There's histamine in foods. There's foods that liberate histamine in the body. But you're right, there's loads to do with stress response as well. And when you get stressed, you start to create more histamine. It's kind of, it's the body's response to protecting itself from inflammation. And what is inflammation if it's not stress? You know,
absolutely.
So yeah, that's really what's going on, and definitely managing. I mean, it's funny actually doing this because I said during lockdown I've kind of been doing quite well with developing new habits, and one of them is non-negotiable daily exercise, and another is non-negotiable meditation. I've got to 6 p.m. and I've not done either today because I had quite a stressful day of work. So so you know, really what I should be doing tonight after this is switching off and doing a bit of exercise. And then
what are you going to?
I will, definitely, yeah. Although
because that's the interesting thing.
The start of the football season with the lads as well, so I'm going to have to combine all that in.
Are you allowed to play football now?
Oh no, I'm not playing football. The Premier League starts tonight, Katie. You should.
Oh God. I wondered what Mr. Brindle was up to. He said he'd gone to work. I was so glad he'd gone out of the house. I didn't think to check. I was like, bye, obviously, I love my husband very much, but after 12 weeks of being in each other, literally, it's just like, okay, bye, love.
Oh, yeah,
I'm delighted the football season started again.
It does feel like lockdown does feel like it's reached. I mean, you know, by its very nature, kind of peak lockdown this week. More and more people be slightly more at the end of their tether than ever before, I think.
Oh my God, honestly, there's nothing better than the football season starting, in my opinion. So that's all good stuff.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to get any exercise in today then?
No, I will. I'll probably do one of Aaron's Qigong workouts, which, you know, the video is about 20 minutes, so that's great. By the way, if anyone's watching this and thinking, you know, what is this all about? I would absolutely recommend you do the week's 12 Rivers course with Aaron, because it's just fantastic. It's just so enjoyable. It is very manageable. And, you know, I don't know how long we're going to talk for. And it doesn't really matter because I can squeeze 20 minutes in at any point. And then, you know, 10 minutes of meditation. It's not loads, but if you start small and don't aim too high, then you can always get it in on a day.
Well, that's it. And you know, the other thing that I did, because obviously my lockdown started with me kind of, obviously as an Eastern practitioner, kind of thinking, gosh, you know, you got your NHS heroes. I'm thinking, oh, this is so frustrating, because of course what I'd love to do is go into the hospitals and start doing my frontline stuff, which of course I'm not allowed to do, understandably. So I thought, right, well, I know in my heart that if you've got a strong immune system, then you've got less chance of things kind of, you know, the body's got more of a fighting chance to support itself, therefore less reliance on the NHS. I'll do that bit. So I sort of whacked on the camera and started doing my morning Qigong. And what we're now doing is, at the very last movement, we go into an active meditation. So the idea of Qigong is that you go into a meditative state. So in your 20 minutes with Aaron, once you've got the hang of the moves, you can do exercise and meditation at once.
That answers my meditation. Brilliant. That would be great, because actually me and my partner, since the start of the year, we've had a WhatsApp group dedicated to letting each other know every day when we meditate. And it's kind of on track. You know, on the days I'm conscious that I haven't posted in that particular group to let her know I haven't done 15 minutes of meditation or 10 minutes of meditation. And it's interesting. There's so many people posting saying how much they love 12 Rivers. You mentioned tapping, which because, you know, tapping was my route into kind of your area of speciality a lot more.
Well, let me just grab that, because that was now I gave you one of these.
I've got it. It's actually the spare room is in such a disgraceful state. I'm not going to show you, but it is in the corner of the room. I'm happy.
But you then sent us a very manly photo of you going like that with it, which then obviously went up on our grid because it was such a great picture. But you know, the great thing about tapping, I find, is that on those days when you don't get time and it has all run away with you, like today, you think, oh, I was supposed to go for. I mean, I do the Qigong every single morning because I lead the class, but then I'm supposed to go for a walk with the dogs every afternoon, and that doesn't always happen. Well, I mean, the dogs get walked, but I'm not always necessarily doing it because I get carried away with other things. But what the tapper does is it gives you that kind of meditation exercise boost in like a couple of minutes, which is what's so good about it. So are you managing to use your tapper?
Yeah, I've been using the tapper, and actually, you know, one of the things in Aaron's classes is there's a kind of tap down at the end of the class, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So sometimes been doing that, and then he's got another one which is, I can only really describe it as a smooth down rather than a tap down, where you, rather than tapping, you kind of smooth the body, and that's very nice as well. And then there's the third one where you just hover it over, and that actually is possibly, I mean, I can't explain how it works, but it does. It's lovely.
It's energetic. I mean, that's the thing. And you know, I personally say to everybody, like, if you don't have time to exercise, tap. like if you own a yoga mat, you need a tapper. If you like sport, you need a tapper. If you're a male and you're not as enlightened, sort of in the same space as you, and kind of like thinking it's all a bit sort of like not sure about that. If you're like doing really intense, vigorous exercise, you must tap at the end, because again, if you're doing vigorous exercise as a man, you're then basically encouraging a load of stress hormones into the body from the vigorous exercise, and you've got to relax the body afterwards. Otherwise, you've got yet more stress hormones going around the body. So this is why the Chinese masters would tap for like 20 minutes after Kung Fu practice, which was, of course, what they were doing, because it really gets the body relaxed. And I don't know if Aaron's mentioned this to you, but the other great thing about this is when you tap the long bones, which is the arms and the legs, you're invigorating the stem cells, which is really good for preventing injury and keeping the body kind of young and strong, which is quite a useful thing, because obviously kind of gym kind of exercise is straining the body.
Yeah, well, I mean, without bigging you and Aaron up too much, it's funny because I did have quite a sore neck over the last few weeks, probably stress related, and that has gone away since I've been doing these Qigong workouts. I don't know if it's that or something else, but that could be that.
Yeah. And by the way, have you used the Body Restorer much? Have you been doing that or not really?
Faith does it more than me, but yes.
Oh, does she now? Because that's the one that I was talking to Mark, who basically helps me run the business, who's the token male in my company. No, that's not true. There's a few of them now, but he was. But he said to me when I very first introduced the business to him and sent him basically a box of all the, because we were in COVID by that point. So I sent him a box of everything, and he said immediately this was the one that he was drawn to, because he felt that it was a sort of very appealing kind of tool to the men, because obviously it's very good as kind of deep muscle therapy. So it's like deep tissue massage. You need to get your partner to do this on your back. This is what's going on. She needs to be doing it on you. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you need to do it on each other. This is my Netflix tool. This is what Mr. Brindle and I, this is how we've whiled away lockdown. We just sit there gua showing each other's back every night. Rock and roll. So the qi of the body is made in two ways. One, by breath, and two, by food. And the body needs both. But if you are taking away one, like food, you need to supplement it with the other, because you've got to strengthen the qi up. So normally when you were doing fasting, you would be doing extra breath work, so more qigong. And also you should be encouraging spiritual practice as part of that, because the idea is if you start restricting the physical nature of the body, you're heightening the ethereal nature of the body, which is more the divine aspect, which is the breath. And I think one of the problems with kind of like modern living is that what we do is we kind of like go, right, we look at everything from a very sort of physical, biological level and go, right, I'm not going to eat for 14 hours because I'm going to have my window of food, and then the body does this and the body does that. And I think, well, biologically, yeah, the body does. But actually, the body isn't just a biological thing. The body is spiritual, and it's also emotional, and the body needs qi. So therefore, you need to be doing extra breath work. And this is, again, where Qigong comes in, because the Taoist masters would be fasting for, weeks on end, living off literally saliva and breath. I think they were slightly trying to prove a point. But the point is, what they were aiming for was immortality. Now, if we bring that into the modern life, what we're looking for is a strong, healthy body. So I personally think I'm all for choice. I'm all for life. If you want to do it, you do what you want, but do it with wisdom and do it with the full facts. So if you're going to do the 14 hours of no food break, then you need to be doing extra breath work in order to supplement the fact that qi is not coming in via food. And that's the bit that's missing.
That's really interesting, because I found intermittent fasting just suits my body so incredibly well. I mean, I to the extent where this is actually probably not what you're supposed to do, but I feel like I can actually eat whatever I want in the remaining time. I feel, so energized at the end of, say, 16 hours. I don't have breakfast. That's it. I still have black coffee or one of your delicious teas, but just not breakfast. And by the time it gets to lunch, the difference in my energy levels before lunch and after, I mean, I would tend to eat fairly low carb at lunch, but after a big carby lunch, it's incredible the difference. And that must be down to fasting, which is why I was interested in asking you about it, because I know you've talked about it before.
Well, I think the thing is, there's definitely a histamine thing going on here. So there's obviously a blood sugar kind of situation going on. But I think, why don't you now just do like a week-long experiment with yourself? Because I know you're really good at testing this stuff out, like I am. I get some nugget and I'm like, oh, my entire brand has been created by me standing in my bath and going, oh, I wonder what happens if I do this, literally. And sometimes it's been better, sometimes it's just like my husband comes and goes, what the hell is going on in here? It's just like random thing. Here's a random thing that's never going to see the light of day. So this, for example, look, this is one of my, what happens if I do this? This is called Toxen. And this is a treatment where they do this on the body because it's deep vibrations. So this was one of my great ideas, which I will share because it's never going to happen. But, but anyway, so the challenge I would suggest is, why don't you now for a week, having done your, carry on with the intermittent fasting, but why don't you actively seek to really bring breath into the fasting period and see, and given that we're still sort of in this sort of quasi lockdown, that we do have a little bit more time available, so that Qigong followed by meditation as an active breath practice, to see what then happens to your body. Because I would anticipate, they often say that with fasting, the body has time to repair itself and all the stuff that they say. Well, imagine if you add oxygen into the mix in a profound way, because of course we know that oxygen is the #1 healing modality to the body. So if you're eliminating food, supplementing the oxygen.
Yeah. See, this is why I love your stuff. And when anyone ever talks to me about breathing, the first thing I do is go,
well, it's a necessary thing. And the other thing that I like about the part of what the brand that I brought to life was the idea of meditation. And you were saying that you were going to do, right, you say, so it's like exercise and meditation every single day, like boom, 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 is that on the days that it just simply doesn't happen, you get the tapper, that's that bit. But then the rescue breath, which is part of the brand, is very much aimed at those people that just kind of don't get enough rest time, don't get time to meditate, can't meditate. Everyone finds meditation, a lot of people, not everyone, finds meditation quite hard to do. That rescue breath that we draw in is just one breath. And Jules is on this feed at the moment because she does all my research with me. We research this really thoroughly, and you can negate the stress response in one breath. That is an active, Thich Nhat Hanh says, one breath is a meditation. And it's quite a useful thing to know that actually, if it all gets a bit much and those 10 minutes is just kind of not going to happen today, that actually just by doing that one deep breath into the lower dantian or the vagus nerve, depending where you're looking at it, can actually go from the body, from being over here, can actually hook it back round. And I think, especially as somebody, a fellow histamine kind of person, it's quite a useful technique.
Yeah. And I mean, from a mindful perspective, as well as what's actually going on in the body there, I often find in 10 minutes, I will sometimes just kind of, count each breath in and out. And it's very hard to maintain focus for 10 breaths. And one breath does make a difference, doesn't it? You know that I've trained in NLP, and I've been using the techniques for that for years. And even when I had my screen test at Sky 15 years ago, in the minute, I was so nervous. I wanted the job so badly. It was my absolute dream to be working there. And in the minute, as they were counting down a minute in my ear, and it was the moment that could change my life, and I would work on the channel that I watched for 3 hours a day, I did basically self-hypnosis on myself to just try and take myself into a different state, and I did. Well, I got the job anyway.
Yeah, and it worked. And look at you now, famous.
And look at me standing in my bedroom, desperately trying to get close to the internet connection.
I know. Oh, the glamour. Well, Tony, I won't take up any more of your time, but it was so lovely to talk to you. Thank you for coming on our feed, because men's health is such an important part. It's a very important week. I know my brand is predominantly female, and it tends to be in this sector that the women lead the charge and then the men come through. But you've been literally, we started working together right at the very beginning. So, and I'm so happy that you've met Aaron and that you're now fully in the complet of the whole of the method. So thank you for being such a good advocate.
I mean, it should be pointed out that we should have been doing this in person at Glastonbury next week, because I did have Glastonbury tickets, and so I know
I had Glastonbury tickets.
But next year, right?
Next year. And we had this whole conversation about whether you should or shouldn't take your baby to Glastonbury. Do you remember?
I told everyone about that conversation.
I know.
She's got a bit of experience in this area, Glastonbury and parenting, and here's what she says.
Yes, well now, of course, all my children are now that much older that they now go themselves and they don't want to have anything to do with me. They literally just vanish. It's like, oh God, Mum, you're too old. I'm like, excuse me.
Well, it'll be 2 next year. Does your same advice apply?
Oh my God, even more so. 2's even worse. I mean, this is a baby, you know, like no 2, like no chance. You'll be in the children's environment the entire time. So I would definitely be enlisting Granny and Grandpa for some quality time with their grandchildren.
Yes, we'd actually booked an Airbnb kind of fairly near Glastonbury, fairly near you, and we were going to go for a day and then, you know, get family to come and look after him for a couple of days.
I think that's definitely worth it. But you see, my ultimate excuse is work, of course. So what we need to do is get ourselves invited on the basis we've got to do some kind of like work thing. Centre stage, how about that? And it's, I can't possibly do anything for childcare because I'm working. That's probably why I work so hard. Oh God, I've just realised my children are watching this. I don't mean you.
Wasn't the first interview that we did, wasn't it the day after Glastonbury? Or I think you were telling me the story about how you flew to New York the day after Glastonbury, and I was like, how did you do that?
I know, how did I do that actually? I have got no idea. I don't know. I don't know. It's just a bit like how, you know, how do you perform so brilliantly on Sky every single time that you're on? Because you love it, I guess, and therefore it just like fires you up no matter what.
Well, that's very kind of you. You haven't been watching Sky enough recently, but thank you.
/ever. But every now and then my husband is, and you're on the telly, I'm like, oh, I work with him. And he sort of looks at me like I'm a bit mysterious. He goes, how do you know him? What are you doing in my turf? You know, the fact that I didn't even know that the football had started today slightly gives it away, doesn't it?
That does a little bit, but I'll be on tomorrow night anyway, so I'll try and work tapping into it in some way.
Oh, yes, get that tapper out and get everyone doing it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated. Yeah, take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
So, hope you enjoyed that. Remember to let me know what you think about the new formats, the kind of repurposing of audio. I know the quality isn't quite as good, but I did really enjoy talking to Katie, as I always do, and I think it's kind of worthwhile using that content as long as it's listenable. But as I say, go to TonyWrighton.com, get in touch with me, let me know whether you loved it or you hated it or anything in between as well. And go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology and use the coupon code ZestOlogy10 to save up to 40% off Magnesium Breakthrough, which I'm still taking. Feeling very good on it at the moment, actually. I've been taking it for quite some time now. And if you head to magbreakthrough.com/zestology, use that code ZestOlogy10. If there's one mineral you should be taking at the moment, it's magnesium, especially when it gets very hot. I think we get more depleted. We need more electrolytes and more magnesium. And I've certainly been taking more in summer than I normally do. But if you use that code ZestOlogy10, then you will get up to 40% off, depending on what deal you get. Great. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.